Will, there's a new phenomenon sweeping cinemas across the globe this week, or at least last week if you're listening to this on the free feed.
Right.
Trap Nation is on the rise. All my trapaholics, all my trappers and trapettes
and trap queens.
Trap queens, yes, we're all trap queens this week because one of the last remaining auteurs in the Hollywood studio system put out his latest great work, as it will, Trap. And listen, I know what you're thinking at home. You're thinking, wait a minute, when are they going to start talking about Arthur? When are they going to get to the author? Yeah, okay.
If you're wondering about that, then hey, welcome to your first episode of Elwood City Limits, the episodic Arthur podcast.
Welcome to your first episode of Elwood City Limits and the sneaky first episode of the Trapcast.
Oh.
All about trap.
More like a pond trap.
Will, I know you don't go see movies in the theater. It's actually one of the defining characteristics, I think, of our friendship is that I'm the go see movies in the theater guy. You're the watch the movies at home guy. So I have to say, at the earliest convenience when it's available at home streaming, you gotta see this Trap movie. It's pretty bonkers, I gotta say.
I will definitely be seeing it as soon as I can, if nothing else, because over on my Letterboxd account, I am trying to watch all of M. Night Shyamalan's movies. A lot of them I'm watching again for the second time. So, I do plan to watch it at some point.
It's been an experiment I've been happy to watch you do from afar, because with Shyamalan, it's kind of a weird... Like, M. Night Shyamalan, I don't think is anyone's favorite director. That would be really weird if someone said their favorite director was M. Night Shyamalan. But to this day, M. Night Shyamalan movies, I called him an auteur in jest, but M. Night Shyamalan movies are absolutely appointment viewing. For nothing else, in that the world of M. Night Shyamalan movies is a world where simply anything seems possible. And sure, does it hurt the rewatchability? Like, am I ever going to watch Trap again? Probably not. But did I spend the whole time watching Trap going in my head while the movie, instead of paying attention to the movie, did I spend the whole time in my head going, okay, so are they all demons? Or is this a video game? Or are they undead? Or is this in the dream of a child? Or, the mind is ablaze with the endless possibilities. And I feel like literally any other Hollywood movie you watch these days, you don't get the same effect. You're like, okay, I can see where this is going. M. Night, even when the twist is there's no twist at all, you're still kind of wrapped with attention, wondering what kind of yarn is this wacko gonna spin next. And for that, I am eternally grateful, because you know what? Even if the movies are good, or even if the movies are bad, even if no one in the movies talks like a human being, and nothing that takes place in the movie resembles the mechanics of how real life operates, you're still thoroughly entertained, because you're like, you know what? What's going to be the twist? I need to know the twist. I thank God for M. Night Shyamalan is what I have to say, and I will continue to watch that garbage. Though I'll say anecdotally, I mean, it is very much an M. Night Shyamalan movie. Trap. I would say it's one of the good ones. I would say it's some old school Shyamalan up in there.
Right, because a lot of his newer movies do have that, I'd say, first watch appeal of just not knowing where everything is going to go is what sees you through to the end. And then, there's a couple ones left over that I will be watching a second time and that I never planned on watching a second time. And I don't know if it'll be as good. So we're going to have to find out. But yeah, Trap is absolutely on my radar. But as you said, I'm not going to be seeing it in the theater. So I just... That one is like a day or two away from being Twitter spoiled for me. Like, just, I'm one of those maniacs who goes on the For You And yeah, like I know all the cameos that are happening in Deadpool and Wolverine.
Yeah.
I know basically everything about the plot of Longlegs because I didn't see them in theaters, and now I'm sure I'll get the twist of Trap before too long.
I'll say that, the stuff that makes Trap good, even if you had it spoiled for you, the stuff that makes it good is not plot. It's Josh Hartnett's amazing performance.
Yeah.
And the stuff that you're going to see on Twitter may not even be plot details. It's going to be Trap is joining, I think, American Psycho in the annals of internet GIF reactions. I was sitting in the second row. We were sitting at me and some buddies we had our Trap popcorn buckets. No, it's not true. I wish. But we were sitting in the second row and spent most of that movie staring at Josh Hartnett's big old face. And boy, howdy, does he ever make some faces in that movie. So if you're an aficionado of mugging, which I am, I would say my three favorite things in all of cinema. The reason I love the movies, from Citizen Kane to Rashomon, is one, people going through fake windows, like fake glass.
Okay.
Any movie has that. That's good. Two, squibs, when someone shoots a guy and they set off a little blood packet. That's always...
Yeah, love them.
And three on the pantheon is mugging. I love some mugging. Trap was a delight. It was a full meal. And that comes as a recommendation from me to the Elwood City Limits listeners. I don't know if the connection between Trap and Arthur... I just, we're getting to the end of Arthur, Will. How many opportunities am I going to have to talk to you about Trap? So
very true. You have to seize them while they do, because we do have a weekly podcast, and even though it is, depending on where you're listening to it, can be a little outdated, it is still like, what's going on in terms of the news of the week, and that is the movies of the week is always part of that news. So, Lucas Mancini, thank you very much for informing us about the movie that we should see, which is Trap.
Trap Report.
My name's Trap Report. My name's Will Young, and thank you for joining us for this episode. We're going to get into it in just a moment. I do want to take a second to answer one email that we've gotten in at elwoodcitylimits@gmail.com, where you can send your correspondence to us. This one is from somebody who emailed us last week, is Caleb Cote. Dear Will, Lucas, and Mike. I didn't share this last time, but here is my history with your podcast. I started listening last year in the middle of season 19, so around September or so. I finished your backlog in a month and a half. I listen to podcasts almost all day long. Anyways, you guys are doing a great job. Now, a few Arthur casting calls. So what characters would the Arthur gang be in Disney's Recess? I see Arthur as TJ, Buster as Vince, Francine as Spinelli, Brain as Gretchen, Binky as Mikey, and maybe George as Gus, but not entirely sure about that last one. Also, were you guys scared of walk-around costume characters like Muffy was scared of the birds at the restaurant in this episode? I remember as a kid we went to Disneyland, and I was terrified to go to Toontown because of the costume characters. Thank you, Caleb. Okay, so Arthur characters as Recess characters, I would say that casting kind of works out. I would maybe say that Arthur is Gus and Buster is TJ. And then that just leaves Vince. See, Francine could be Vince, but she is a better Spinelli, I think. I'm not sure, actually. I'm kind of blanking for Vince.
They're not quite one-to-one.
No.
I think there is, in a way, the Arthur characters are a little bit more... I don't want to poo-poo Recess. I will take this opportunity to talk about Recess, I think. It's funny that we never really talked about it in length, but I think the Arthur characters are a little bit more dynamic. Like, of course, characters like the Brain and Muffy are basically kind of stereotypes, but... I don't think Arthur is a one-to-one to, like, Gus Griswold. I mean, Arthur kind of looks like Gus Griswold, and they're both genuinely anxious. But there's a lot of other elements where they kind of diverge. I will say, though, and I think I must have said this on the show before, that I always found, Arthur is a great show to show your 5 to 7-year-old. I would say that Recess is about as good of an education as you could give a 7 to 10-year-old there is. The social learnings that can be gleaned from Recess are really, really powerful in that, so many shows kind of teach your kid how to be a goody two-shoes. And I find that Recess, having Randall be the main antagonist goes to show, who amongst us hasn't met a Randall? Even in their adult life, I feel like I'm surrounded by Randalls. And Recess instills in the young mind, it's like, don't be that guy. Everybody reviles that guy. They want to stay away from him. He's sickening. Everybody really doesn't like him. And it's like, be TJ Detweiler. TJ Detweiler's cool. He wears his hat backward. He's cool. He's got his jacket. He's wise, cracking. I think that there's really important lessons to the adolescent mind that Recess can impart that aren't necessarily overtly educational. And so for that, Recess holds a very special place in my heart.
Recess is totally a good, I think you're totally right. Recess is a great continuation of what Arthur is doing for once you get just a tiny bit older. That's a great call. And scared of themed costume characters? Actually, no. In fact, I loved themed costume characters as a kid. I went to Disney World. I got as many of those autographs as I could. I remember, Halifax has does it still have it, I wonder? It used to have an annual book festival called Word on the Street, and it used to literally take over one of our downtown streets. And there was a few years where there were costumed mascots, and I would go around hugging all of them because I just thought they were super cool. What about you, Lucas? Costumed mascots?
I actually loved costume mascots when I was a kid. I remember when I would run the 4K races for kids, there would always be there'd be a mascot for the race, but there would also be, he's called Mr. Backpass for the mascot for the bridges here in Halifax. I know, or a Japanese prefecture, we have mascots for the bridge. But I would always run up and give them a huge hug. I was a fan. I always thought they were cool. I feel like the mascots that are freaking out Muffy, I guess they are mascots, but in this episode, it was reminding me of there's a, especially amongst the youth of today, kind of a Five Nights at Freddy's kind of obsession with the morbid, twisted version of a restaurant mascot. It seems to be something Gen Alpha and Gen Z are really preoccupied with.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. Speaking of Halifax, thank you, Caleb, for your email, elwoodcitylimits@gmail.com. We already put out a separate podcast about this with the complete instructions on how to do this, but if you're listening to this either on the Patreon or on the free feed, you likely still have time to nominate us for the Best of Halifax Awards 2024. It is time once again to do that. I won't go through the whole explanation, but basically you need to go to vote.thecoast.ca. You will have to register with your full name, your email address, and a Canadian postal code. If you're able to do that, then nominate us as Best Podcast in the Arts and Culture category. You have until mid-August to do that, and then we will let you know once voting has started in September. Please and thank you. And we also want to say thank you to our patrons. Patreon.com/ElwoodCityLimits is where you can get access to our special podcasts that come out every month, including our episode of For the Kids on Bear in the Big Blue House. That's available for patrons right now. And at the end of this month, August, we are going to be doing ECL Origins, all about Naruto. And that is something we're both looking forward to doing, covering and talking about our memories of it. So, yeah, head on over to patreon.com if you want to. Somebody's speeding over to patreon.com right now.
That's somebody in a Corvette on my street is driving straight to the Patreon to hear us talk about Naruto.
And so we want to say thanks to some of our patrons, including people like EJ Acra and Owen, Robert Morrison, Eddie Castillo and Alex K, Jeff L, Wolf Lover Zodiac, Oscar Vest, Hannah Lee, The Flying Sparks 32, and Purple Stars 2006, Zara, and Aaron L. Thank you very much for supporting us at patreon.com/Elwood City Limits. As we continue on here through Arthur Season 22, it's time for an episode called Muffy's House Guests. And Muffy gives us the lowdown here the to camera in this cold open where everybody's having a pool party at her house. And Muffy says, house guests are fine until you can't get them to leave. And there's a couple of ways that you can do this. So you can drop subtle hints. So Muffy invites everybody to the sugar bowl, and she'll buy the first scoop. You can drop not subtle hints, like asking people to leave from a bullhorn. And then you can just go to the direct approach, which is literally flushing the pool of water and then telling people to leave.
I like that Muffy's idea to get people out of her house is to, as Futura and Drake would say, change locations. Usually when you want people to leave, like your party, it's because you want to relax and clean up after them. She's going to go to the sugar bowl with them? Seems like out of the frying pan into the fire, as far as I'm concerned.
Well, yeah, and it's you're not really sure if she meant that or if she just wanted people to go and be like, oh yeah, I'll totally catch up with you. Like it's hard exactly to know. But Muffy has no problem with asking people to leave her house when it's time to go. I guess Muffy, one of those extroverted introverts or something. This episode starts off with Brain, Francine, and Sue Ellen. They discover and they're on the tail of the rare endangered peregrine falcon. We see Brain running after the falcon. Francine joins him. Sue Ellen does as well, but she just ditches her bike on the sidewalk. Why? Why would you do that? It just seems very irresponsible.
Elwood City, it's a clean neighborhood, Will. People they don't lock up their bike. It's like Europe or something.
I guess so.
It's like Denmark. Yeah. Or at least it's like what people say about Denmark. I'm sure there's bike thieves aplenty.
Oh, sure. Yeah, absolutely. And they follow the peregrine falcon, and it nests at a balcony at Muffy's house, the front balcony. Muffy is immediately, disgusted and wants them removed. But after a little bit of conversation with a local wildlife organization, Brain says that it is actually illegal to touch their nest. Now, I was a bit curious about this, and I did look it up. So the peregrine falcon, it was endangered around 50 years ago in the 60s and 70s, but thanks to recovery programs that have happened in the decades since then, it was declassified as endangered in 1999, but it is still federally protected. In fact, the peregrine falcon is one of the biggest successes of the Endangered Species Act in America. So here in 2019 or whenever this is airing, not endangered. Happy to say.
I'm never up with what's endangered and what's not. I feel like this is a common thing. It's like are pandas still endangered? Polar bears? I feel like something gets classified as endangered once and it's forever endangered in my mind, which is probably good PR for the animal, because if you were ever endangered, you want to kind of stay protected, right? But I don't blame the Arthur writers for making this mistake. I'm sure they were it was endangered when they last remembered, and so they're going to consider it endangered still.
Well, and they had to pick a bird that is endangered. I don't even know how many birds are endangered right now. This is actually I might Google this later. This sounds like it could actually be kind of interesting, but you're right. I also don't have a good sense of animals that are endangered. I just wanted to look up if this one was. And the answer is at one point, but thankfully not now. Muffy, she just wants he's out of here at any cost. She runs to her father to ask. Mr. Crosswire drives up in the car from Muffy Takes the Wheel that they designed together, the red car with the flames on it and everything. But as we say, it is illegal to touch their nest, and in fact the peregrine falcons, 2 of them, are sitting on eggs, and they begin to hatch while Muffy's life is totally disturbed by their presence. She's kept awake at night by their sounds. She thinks she gets pooped on later, but it's actually bits of an eggshell. And the fact that they have eggs hatching draws everybody to Muffy's house, including the local news. Mr. Ratburn turns this into a lesson for Muffy's class, and when he sees the feeding pattern of the peregrine falcon, he says, "Isn't regurgitation marvelous?" I gotta say, though, they really had to amp up Muffy's annoying qualities for this one.
I agree.
We've had so many episodes where Muffy is, she can still be a little bit annoying, but she's settled into being a pretty tolerable character. This is the worst she's been in a long time. She's very whiny, and there's a couple of times in the episode where she literally runs crying to her father, just, "Daddy!" And it made me realize, like, we really haven't seen a lot of that behavior in a while. It was kind of disappointing.
She reminds me of, what's that girl's name? The girl from Willy Wonka who gets incinerated. Veruca?
Veruca Salt?
Veruca Salt? She's giving big Veruca Salt energy in this one.
Yeah, and it's just like, listen, I know that there are some people out there who are not fans of Muffy, and we came around on her, but this certainly does not help her case. This was very annoying for most of this episode. And in fact, she doesn't get a lot of help from Mr. Crosswire. He decides to take advantage of all the attention by dressing up in a duck costume and tells everybody about the cheap prices at Crosswire Motors. So all of this is happening, and Muffy, she does have one idea. She also tries to get Bailey to get rid of them, but he is sympathetic to the fact that they are endangered. So she tries to lure the Falcons onto this scale model of, it didn't really look like her house. It's just like a modernist rich person's house. So it's like a scale model that can be their new nest. And then she puts that on the top of her limo so that they can get the Falcons on there and they can drive away and leave them at the park or something. And Muffy tries to tempt them with like a fake mouse, but then the Falcon dives right at Muffy and she has to run for cover and ends up getting dirty in the mud. But when Brain talks to her a little bit more about this, Muffy reveals that it's not just the fact that the birds are annoying her or something like that. She actually has a phobia of birds. When she was 4 years old, she went for her birthday at the Mother Goose Happy Time Pizza Parlor, and she was given a birthday cake by two mascots that are like dapperly dressed geese. And these things are pretty friggin' freaky. You talked about Five Nights at Freddy's earlier. I got serious FNAF vibes off of these two.
This was the highlight of the episode for me. I always love, Arthur has a long storied history of fake restaurants. And
that's true.
It's cartoons, fake restaurants and cartoons are so awesome because you don't have to concern yourself with the mechanics of, you know, money in, money out. How would this actually work? It's why the pizza place from The Weekenders was such a good gag. If that was real, that place would be out of business in 3 weeks. But in cartoons, you know, anything's possible. Remember the restaurant where DW had the spinach pie? And it was like they would take a gondola. It was this big medieval theme.
Once Upon a Restaurant.
Once Upon a Restaurant. It was crazy. And so I always like fake cartoon restaurants because they really kind of set my imagination ablaze. And the theming here, again, there's no restaurants like this in real life. And if there is, the food is never good. But the theming here at this restaurant is so awesome. The booths they're singing in are all these like hollowed out giant teacups.
And it's quite like, it's an ornate little family restaurant setup. And I mean, these mascot costumes, we do even hear after Muffy runs away crying, one of them is just like, well, we're not getting a tip. So there are real people in those things. It's not like automated or something. But that's where Muffy's ornithophobia came from, her fear of birds. And she does admit to that. And Brain suggests that she should learn more about birds to overcome her phobia. Now, Brain says that, like, it's pretty easy to get over a phobia. And it's like, well, not really, because that's why it's a phobia. Like, learning more about what you're afraid of can help you to have a measure of control over it. And you can overcome them, yes, but I wouldn't call it easy, you know?
Brain believes in the, like, Maury Povich show style of...
exposure therapy?
Yeah, exactly. You're going to cart out some poor mentally ill woman who's scared of pickles and have people in a pickle costume present her with a barrel full of pickles. That's essentially what Brain is recommending happen here.
Yeah, it's I had to balk a little bit at that.
Also, I have to say...
Yeah.
And I feel like I bring this up all the time, so I apologize for the longtime listeners if I sound like a broken record. Muffy says that wings and beaks scare her, okay? What? You know what I'm going to say, don't you?
I do.
What about those ducks that were installing her grass, okay? Was she fearful of the help? She was looking down on those ducks that were installing her grass? from season 1.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that.
This avian hatred has to stop, okay?
Oh boy, I completely forgot about that. Thank you. You're right. The season 1 ducks that they never ever brought back. It seems. I guess Muffy just man. There's another animal hierarchy moment coming up in the next story that really rubs our faces in it. And this is a quiet one. This is for those who have seen season 1. There's a more blatant one later. So Brain encourages Muffy to learn more about birds to overcome her phobia. So she observes them from afar in the nest. She thinks the babies are cute, and she gets even close enough to them that she saves the babies from an encroaching raccoon, throws a shoe at them, and becomes protective of them. In fact, the episode ends up with Muffy having set up a migratory emporium where she's charging people for binoculars, where she's taking care of not just the peregrine falcon, but she's keeping tabs on all kinds of other birds. She's become an expert on where the falcons are going to go after they are done taking care of the babies, where they're going to migrate to, and she's developed a further interest in birds. By the way, she named the falcons Chester and Fester, and she made them a picturegram account to keep tabs on them.
Boo!
I think this is the first instance in Arthur of picturegram.
Boo! I picturegram, thumbs down for me. We talked about this a little bit last episode. It just gives it stinks of Bart having a smartphone. You know, not that Arthur can't be contemporary, and I think it usually does a good job of being contemporary, but this makes me roll my eyes.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly they've come up with better names for fake versions of social media apps. Picturegram is like you get it immediately, but all you need is gram from that. But whatever. And so she's going to keep an account for Chester and Fester so that people can keep tabs on them, and she can figure out where they are. And she ends this episode very enthused about birds, no longer afraid of them. And that was the lesson all along. And now a word from us kids.
And now a word from us kids.
This one does kind of relate back to this first story. It's about Keegan and his class. They visit an art exhibit about animals in their neighborhood. And they name this. They're at Rhode Island School of Design. And they are learning about how to live in harmony with animals, as well as making their own art. And they specifically mention that the story we just watched was about Muffy living in harmony with the peregrine falcons.
There's a part where they're interviewing this little girl, and she's like, I think we should leave all the animals alone. And you could tell a producer said, what do you mean by that? Because there's an edit, and she goes... I just mean we should leave them alone, as in we should live in harmony. But the way she kind of follows up on her thought is really funny.
There's a bad way to leave them alone and a good way to leave them alone.
Yes,
we should do the good way of leaving them alone.
That's what she says, and it's just obvious that a producer pushed her to elaborate.
I don't have a lot to say about this one. The art exhibit looked neat and all that, but Keegan I thought was pretty good in front of the camera. He does the little 2-camera bits of this, and he even ends off by stating the fact, really, we human beings, we're animals too. We're animals. He really, I'm doing the gesture, the big sweeping gesture. But he did a pretty good job. And they're getting better at tying these into the stories that we were talking about.
Hi, everybody. It's Lucas, your favorite co-host from Elwood City Limits. I want to remind you folks that if you like listening to the podcast, first and foremost, the best way to spread the love is to tell a friend who is interested in Arthur or podcasts or animation or hearing about Nova Scotia for some reason. But there's some other things you could do as well. For instance, you can follow us on social media. Twitter is at ECL Podcast. The Instagram is at Elwood City Limits. My pet project, the Twitch channel, which we do live streams on sometimes, twitch.tv/Elwood City Limits Pod. And we also have a Facebook and Tumblr as well. You can also find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and youtube.com/Elwood City Limits. That's where Will has been diligently uploading all of the episodes if they're not on your podcast listening service of choice. If they aren't on one of those services, let us know. You can reach out to us on social media or via email at elwoodcitylimits@gmail.com. Finally, the Patreon is where you can find all of our paywall content, patreon.com/Elwood City Limits. This gives you access to the Discord, where we have a bustling community, as well as some exclusive videos, audio bonuses, such as commentary for the various Arthur movies and more, as well as some of our additional podcasts. For the kids is where me and Will cover all the PBS shows that aren't Arthur, as well as ECL Origins, where we really talk about any show from our childhood that we want. And most importantly, you get early access to every episode of ECL. You get to flex on your friends that you're getting it a week early. You can join for as little as $1 a month at patreon.com/Elwood City Limits. And now, back to the show.
And now, back to Arthur.
Long title on this one, Binky can't always get what he wants. And the cold open is a bunch of the kids are auditioning for a commercial about the Beet Burger, B-E-E-T. And it looks to be a hamburger, except the meat is like a patty of beets, made of beets. Lucas, would you eat the Beet Burger?
Now, this isn't fair because I have not eaten supper yet, Will.
Oh.
So at this point, I would eat just about anything.
Fair enough.
But the Beet Burger sounds appealing to me.
I don't know how I feel about beets. I'm not sure if I like them or not. So, and I mean, you can dress up a non-meat burger to the point where it tastes fine, you know? So I don't want to write this off. It's a lot of beet. It's a very thick patty that they have. So I don't know. I'd probably at least give it a bite. It looks dressed pretty well. Binky is the one narrating this. We see the kids giving their shot at the Beet Burger commercial, and Binky is saying that he's up next. He also says, they want an average kid, and who's more average than me? We end off the cold open, but we're not sure who got the part. The other part of this episode is that Ratburn's class are putting together a cat adoption talent show, or CATS, and we see some of the students preparing for it, including Maria. Now, I continue to be proven wrong by this, and you know what? I gotta stop saying this is the last time that we'll see X or Y character. I'm pretty sure when we did the episode that was all about Maria, I was like, yeah, we'll never see her again. But here she is. She has a role, and she has lines. She's talking, and they've also paid attention to the fact that she overcame a stutter, and she still has it a little bit when she speaks, but she's much more confident. Binky comes back from the commercial shoot because he is going to be the musical accompaniment for the talent show, and he's practicing giving enough of a pizzazzy accompaniment to Ratburn for his opening bit on his clarinet, of course. I wanted to note here, because Maria's whole thing is that she is the cat wrangler for this, because they're going to be bringing cats up on stage, and they will have the forms for people to adopt them. She makes a mention of the Magic Cats book series that she reads. That's got to be a reference to Warrior Cats. I can only imagine that that's probably what that is. I've never read Warrior Cats, but I also know enough to know that it is popular enough that it would warrant a parody title in the Arthur world.
Is it called Warrior Cats, or is it just called, like... I always thought that book was confusing because it was called just like Warriors, but there was cats on the front.
Well, the series is called Warrior Cats. Or, okay. No, you know what? I'm looking this up. It's, all right. So the website says warriorcats.com. But to your point, when I go to the Wikipedia page, the novel series is called Warriors.
Okay. That's how I remember it in the Scholastic Book Fair, was it being called Warriors. Very confusing. Huh. I was like, okay, are the baseball Furies in this book? No, unfortunately not.
You're right, and a lot of these book titles just have warriors. Well, then why are they called Warrior Cats?
I mean, they are cats.
Well, yeah, but
Sunwing isn't called Sunwing bats.
I suppose so. But like,
and the Guardians of Ga'Hoole, they're not. They're just the Guardians of Ga'Hoole. They ain't owls. Whatever happened to all these YA books about anthropomorphic?
I think, you know what? I bet that there's more than we think that there are. But we grew up at a time where having animals that could talk as your protagonists was a little bit less fraught than maybe doing that today.
Oh my god, the warrior cats are coming to kick my ass, Will. Just a second. Oh my goodness gracious. Okay, I think they're gone. We can continue with the episode.
That dude is serious about warriors. Not warrior cats, warriors. Excuse me.
The Wikipedia article says warriors, also known as warrior cats.
Yeah, but like when? When are they known as that?
I will say this, Will. The first time I ever heard it described as warrior cats was just now in this conversation.
Really? I only know it as warrior cats.
Really?
Okay. We clearly need somebody listening to this, and I know that there's one or two of you out there who know about warriors/warrior cats. When are they warriors? When are they warrior cats? Help me. Help me. I want to know. I'm asking you to tell me. ElwoodCityLimits@gmail.com. Okay. In the episode, Binky ends up getting the commercial part. There's a scene at the Sugar Bowl where Muffy is getting the word back, and they have ranked various characters, number 3, number 2. I believe Brain was number 9, but he's happy he at least got in the top 10. Binky was said to have an earthy quality that reminds them of beets. So he is going to be getting the commercial part, and we get this whole imagination where Binky is thinking about the life of luxury that he is going to lead after starring in a commercial. So he's going to be buying 2 luxury cars. He's going to get himself a whole new wardrobe. He's even going to earn the Nobel Prize for acting in an advertisement, which I thought was pretty good.
Also his like aesthetic. Oh my goodness. It's a busy night on Portland Street, Will.
Oh boy.
Oh my word.
What is it, the Wharf Rat Rally over there?
I have no idea what's going on. Anyway, we got to push through. We could get to the end of this. It's the Warrior Cats coming to beat me. So, in this imagination, it's like he's not like a contemporary movie star. Like he really has like kind of a Gone with the Wind style aesthetic.
Yes. You mean Binky in his imagination?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like he almost looks like, I think we've used this before, but he looks like he's dressed like a member of Outcast or something.
Or like Vincent Price or something like that.
Sure. Just like a striped suit. He's got 2 dogs. Just imagining himself as like the richest man who ever lived. I also want to mention that he asks Raffi, who works at the Sugar Bowl, to get him a cheesy Frank, which I thought sounded interesting, but it looks like Raffi just put some nacho cheese haphazardly on a hot dog and heated it up in the microwave or something. Muffy did not get the part, obviously, but she appoints herself as Binky's manager and accompanies him to the commercial shoot. I really liked her addressing someone on set as, "Hey, clipboard," like immediately throwing her weight around. That was very funny. So Binky's commercial shoot is all ready to go, but unfortunately, it's happening at the same time as the talent show. So he needs to go back and cancel on the talent show because the commercial is his big break. But he's very nervous to cancel on it. We see an uncharacteristically frazzled Mr. Ratburn. He had his concessionist cancel on him at the last minute, and he's like, who would cancel just an hour away from showtime? And Binky has to very meekly say, I can't make it. We don't often see Mr. Ratburn at his wit's end like that. I also wanted to note here, when we go backstage, we're usually seeing Maria playing around with the cats, and she points out one who has one eye, and his name is One-Eyed Cornelius. Couldn't help but notice all the cats are just recolored models of Nemo, who unfortunately Nemo's voice actor passed away, and we're not doing any more dog and baby episodes, so we won't see that character anymore. But it's like recolored models of Nemo, including the original model of Nemo from his debut episode, where he looked totally different.
I was like, is that just Nemo? I think that's Mittens is the one that looks exactly like Nemo.
Yes. Yeah. and then the rest of them just are the Nemo character model they settled on. Just in different
Also,
colors.
I paused. I actually just happened to pause. If you go to 2422, these cats are huge. The scale is all off.
Can you describe?
It's just like it's like they're tiger cub sized. When they're all crawling all over Binky, they're like way too big. Oh yeah, and she picks them up. It's like 2420. They're way too big.
I don't know. I guess it didn't register to me, but also I don't own a cat, so
Oh. Every mention of cats, Will. It's these warrior cats.
Warriors or otherwise. Yeah, I don't know. I've never owned a cat, so like cat sizing, I don't really know anything about it to begin with. Yeah, so Binky goes back to the talent show, admits that he can't make it there, and then is taken back to the commercial shoot in Muffy's limo. But he is replaced on the shoot for being late, so now he's not doing the talent show or the commercial shoot. However, as soon as Binky goes back to the school, Mr. Ratburn immediately takes him back. However, Binky's really bummed about missing his shot at stardom, and his musical accompaniment is very sad and very listless, which is, asking one kid on clarinet to be all musical accompaniment for the night is a bit much. And then it's like, yeah, if you're not careful, clarinet accompaniment is a lot more sober than maybe you want for like a talent show, especially when like Ratburn is dressed like the greatest showman here for his outfit and has like a big fake mustache on as well. Binky is very, very down in the dumps as the various acts goes on stage. This is the animal hierarchy thing that I was referencing. Buster is doing a magic act that involves a bunny, and it's weird.
Yeah, already the animal hierarchy was bad enough we're talking about all these cats, right? But that's something that we're used to. People have had pets, but Buster with a bunny, I'm almost speechless, Will. I mean, what more is there to talk about here? The difference is the cats are kind of like cartoony. Even the like, the non-funny animal cats, like the ones they're auctioning. This bunny is weirdly realistic. And I think it only looks more so with Buster holding it. It's just, I don't know what to say. It's just unsettling. It's
much to think about. So Binky goes backstage. He really can't pull it together, but then the cats cover him, all the cats that are to be adopted, with what Maria calls a magic cat blanket, which helps Binky feel better, and he begins to play a bit more energetically on clarinet. And there's this scene where he gets the energy back up with his clarinet, and they're like, he needs to play energetically or we won't be able to adopt these cats out. And I'm like, all right, like, I guess so. Because as soon as Binky starts to put some pizzazz into it, they start to adopt these cats out. I'm just like, all right, okay, whatever. The episode ends up with Binky. He's okay. He's made his peace with not being at the commercial shoot. In fact, he's going to adopt One-Eyed Cornelius. So I guess for what few episodes we have left, Binky now has a little sister and a cat. So that's neat. And Maria shows, and I don't know how she got these, but I guess maybe Muffy was on a video call with her or something. Maria shows Binky outtakes of Sue Ellen, who got the commercial shoot job and had apparently a miserable time in like a Beet costume. So it's actually not that bad that he missed out on it anyway. And that's the end of that episode. It's time for us to review this, I suppose, and give our thoughts on it. Lucas, what did you think about Muffy's house guests?
Muffy's house guests, it's pretty good, actually. I don't know, it's a pretty unremarkable episode, but it's really funny. I had so many quotes written down. Yes, Muffy is kind of regressed back to season 1 Muffy, where she's a parody of herself, and she's just kind of a screeching, kind of rich little brat. But the writing kind of makes up for it, in that it's just a really funny episode. Not a big arc to it. It's sort of Muffy is the only one who is against these protected birds. I do like that Braid was going to call the federal government, or in fact, he called the federal government to put a stop to Muffy's plans. But I don't know. If Muffy's going to be annoying, she should kind of be a foil. She's kind of the anti-hero of this episode, and that you're rooting against her the whole time. And then she kind of sees the light at the end. I found it entertaining enough. It wasn't go away heat with me, and I was laughing throughout. So, not in a regular season of Arthur, is it going to make my top 5? No, but I enjoyed my time with it.
Yeah, I think I enjoyed it a little bit less than you did. Muffy, I forgot how grating she can be. And now she did improve by the end of the episode. I do like the through line of when it became about her phobia. I thought that was a lot more interesting than just her being put out by these eagles. So, by the end of the episode, I think they righted the ship on it a little bit, but it certainly started off pretty rough. I no strong feelings about it other than I thought Muffy was annoying for part of it. It was all right. I think it was interesting to have an episode about both endangered animals and phobias, and doing those both at the same time, but didn't especially move me. I would say that I probably liked Binky Can't Always Get What He Wants a bit more. Again, on both of these, I'm a little bit in the middle of the road, but this one I did think was like quite funny. I responded to quite a bit of it, and it's just the whole framing of it. I wasn't really sure where it was going to go after a while. I thought maybe Binky was going to do the whole thing of like he's going to try to do both at the same time, but instead he just immediately loses the commercial shoot, and the talent show thing with him playing the music was also a little bit like, okay, I guess. It would depending on who it was, like this almost might have made more sense as an Arthur episode if he was like playing the piano as accompaniment. But why would we have an episode about Arthur in the show called Arthur? But yeah, otherwise I thought it was pretty good. Funny, fairly memorable in terms of the stuff that they were talking about. Ratburn dressed like the Greatest Showman is great. I took a screen cap of that. That'll be on the socials. But yeah, again, pretty good.
I actually felt a little bit more negative about Binky Can't Always Get What He Wants. And here's my mentality.
Sure.
An episode where Muffy was annoying used to be the norm. The norm for Binky episodes is that they're the highlight of the season.
Ooh,
and
yeah.
As far as Binky episodes go, this one's actually kind of disappointing. I found that it wasn't holding my interest. I liked all the commercial stuff. Like, I think this episode has a really dynamic intro that grabbed me and I thought was funny with the Beet Burger. But then once it becomes about the cat auction, I feel like it really loses steam. And then, I'm sorry, and this is going to sound so pretentious, but I do not buy the conclusion to this episode. Okay?
Ooh.
Little kid cat auction, and they don't start bidding on the cats until the guy starts playing the clarinet. Too insulting to my intelligence. That doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense. Like, that's just not how the laws of the universe operate. Like, people started bidding because they were so charmed by the clarinet playing. Oh, now I feel bad. Now I'm gonna bid on the cats. It felt like I don't know what they were going for, but it doesn't really make sense to me. It doesn't hold up under scrutiny. So I don't know. It's not like it's a bad episode or anything, but I feel more negative about it just because I so look forward to Binky episodes, and we only have so many left. And I don't know. This is probably near the bottom if you took all of the Binky episodes into account.
Yeah, just in the sense that it was kind of okay, and I agree with you. Like the ending was really like that aspect of it was just like, what are we doing here? Like, I don't know. It's just didn't work for me. And as you said, we only have so many Binky episodes left. Hopefully, the next one we get will be a little bit more uplifting to our spirits, and we're gonna find out sooner than we think because, we've only got one episode left, and then we're done this season. In case you've forgotten, we are in one of the shortest Arthur seasons yet, and they're only getting shorter. So yeah, we're about to cover the season finale very soon. But thanks a lot for listening to this episode of Elwood City Limits. Again, Patreon, we've got some fun content coming up this month and beyond that with our side podcasts and more. We're going to be talking about Naruto at the end of this month, so if you'd like to listen to that full episode, I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm really looking forward to watching it and talking about it with Lucas, who is even bigger of a Naruto fan than me. So we will be talking about that on patreon.com/Elwood City Limits at the end of the month. I also just want to quickly say, I know that I already mentioned this, on the free feed, there is a short podcast that I put out about a week ago about Best of Halifax 2024, how to help us. Remember, vote.thecoast.ca. Also in there, in case you didn't listen to it or have been sitting on it or something like that, I do go over what the rest of the year looks like for us, because we get to the end of these podcast episodes and it's like, yeah, we only have so many episodes left. So I did talk a little bit about what's going to happen with the podcast. Can't go into too many details beyond that, so I recommend that you listen to it. It's a very short audio on the free feed. It's right before it's two, I guess it would be two before this episode. So check that out. If you have any questions, of course, if you're a patron, you can talk to us in the Discord. Send us a message on social media or email us, elwoodcitylimits@gmail.com.
Well, I was just going to say, we get questions all the time. I think it's probably one of the most common questions we've been asked over the years is, are you guys really going to watch all of Arthur? What are you going to do when you get to the end of Arthur? And now, if you go back to listen to that episode, you're going to have some answers to the subject. And also, we're kind of officially entering, as we're getting close to the end of the year, we're winding down. Me and Will talked about this. We need all the kind of groundswell we could get for these Best of Halifax awards. So I'm officially declaring it hashtag the end of Arthur. We're entering a new era. It's the hashtag end of Arthur era, Will. I love some branding. And so spread it on the Discord, spread it on Twitter. Elwood City Limits is officially in hashtag end of Arthur.
We only have
the cops are taking me away because it's such a good idea.
Well, and of course, we have one more episode of season 22 left, and that's going to be Muffy's car campaign and Truth or Poll. Sounds like Muffy has been running a car campaign outside your apartment all night. We're going to find out what that's all about. And then, of course, we're going to be getting into our season recap after that. We've got our Patreon episode coming out this month. Also, I'm going to be, as I've kind of said this before, I'm going to be taking the last week of August off. We have stuff planned so that you won't be missing out on a week or anything. And then once we get into September, we're going to be starting off with a new season of Arthur, season 23. There's so much left to come, and that's not even covering the stuff that we're going to be doing on Patreon, which we're not going to tell you about yet. So keep subscribed to whatever feed that you please. Thank you so much for supporting us. And that's going to do it for this episode of Elwood City Limits. My name's Will Young, and for Lucas Mancini,
what kind of ridiculous birds don't live in trees?
We'll see you next time.